So I want polar fans in Project Slayers. To get them, I'll need 150,000 wen, 10 ores, and a war fans. War fans are a 1% drop from tier 5 chests. The only problem is that there are only 4 bosses in the game that drop tier 5 chests, and each boss has a 15-minute timer before spawning again. So I could go days without getting the war fans. But let's just hope that doesn't happen. My plan is pretty simple. Grind every tier 5 boss until I get the war fans. Since the fans are pretty rare, by the time I get them, I'll probably have enough ores from other chests, so I'll be knocking 2 of the requirements out already. As for when, I can sell some of the loot I get from chests, or do dungeons if I still don't have enough, or worst case scenario, I get the win from grinding thousands of bosses. The first server I was in had barely any players, and eventually I was in the server alone. So I could farm the bosses and get the highest possible percentages to get war fans. Because if you didn't know, boss drops have their own set percentages. But there is also percentages based on how much damage you deal to a boss. For example, someone who deals 90% of the damage to a boss is more likely to get a rare boss drop in their chest compared to someone who only did 10%. So solo boss grinding will ensure I have the best luck to get the fans. But all that doesn't matter when you accidentally disconnect yourself from the server. The next server was the complete opposite. There was a bunch of people grinding bosses, making it pretty hard to get anything rare. And every time I server hop, I have to waste time figuring out the boss spawn time routes, and lose out on potentially getting the war fan from a chest. Usually these routes start with akeza spawning first, then either tengen or rengoku, and finally Douma. This is mainly due to akeza being the easiest boss to get to, because all you have to do is teleport directly to the akeza cave, and Douma being last, because you have to travel far to get to the horse guy when going to the next boss. Every route also has one boss that takes longer to spawn than others, but this won't be much of a problem if you are solo grinding and take a little longer to kill bosses. Anyway, I'm already around 2 to 3 hours into boss grinding. It's also better drops weekend, so I should be getting rare loot. But so far, the best stuff I've gotten is some ores. It was getting pretty boring grinding endlessly with no luck getting good loot, but at least there is this little goober.
Oh no!
At this point it was getting late, and I was pretty tired, so I wanted to get off and get some sleep. But before that, here is some of the loot from today. In day 1, we managed to get some of these weapons, and 13 ores. Anyway, on to day 2. Day 2 started off horrible. I didn't get a single boss drop in my first 5 chests, and the loot I was getting wasn't good aside from the occasional ore. But there was still hope. If I continue to grind, I could eventually get enough ores to trade for a war fan, and hopefully still have enough ores to trade for a polar mask, because with my luck, there is no way I could get a polar mask if I can't even get a war fan. So let's just continue to grind bosses and hope we get something rare quick. A few hours later, I was getting a bit demotivated, until this happened.
Huh?
So I got the Douma top, which is probably the worst supreme top you could get. It's inferior to the polar top, which I have right now, but I won't complain. A supreme item is a supreme item. It's also a cool collector's item, and if I really wanted to, I could trade it for some decent stuff. This is also the first time I've actually gotten something rare, so I now know it's possible to get actual rare loot. At this point I was literally grinding so long that everyone left the server, and I was losing hope fast, until I realized I have grinded for so long that I have 42 ores. There was no point in grinding anymore when I could just trade for war fans and still get more stuff, and that's what I did. I got a trade offer surprisingly fast and traded away 12 ores for a war fan. I have no idea if this was a good trade, but I don't really care since I can get ores pretty easily. Once I got the fans, I went back into the main game and teleported to the devourer's jaw. And finally, after 2 entire days of grinding, I got the polar fans. But that's not all I want. The polar fans have 3 tiers. One of the main requirements for these tiers is essence, and essence is obtained through blue spider lilies. Every time you use a blue spider lily, you get 1 essence, and you need 2000 essence for tier 3. That means you need 2000 blue spider lilies, and there is no way I'm doing that. So I'll need the entire polar set to boost my essence per blue spider lily and make grinding for tier 3 much faster. Luckily I already have the polar top from grinding dungeons. So all I need is the polar bottom and polar mask. The polar bottom is obtained through dungeons, and the mask is a 0.5% drop from tier 5 chests. And there is no way I'm doing boss grinding again. So I'll just buy the polar mask, but for the polar bottom, I'll test my luck in dungeons and hope I can get it somewhat fast. The first dungeon was going well until I got some pretty unlucky boss spawns with Yahaba, Swampy, and Douma targeting me, but at least I got 6200 points on my first run with the polar fans. And now let's see what I got from the chests. Somehow I got the polar bottom, which has a 0.25% chance of dropping. So I guess all those hours of grinding went to something. Anyway, let's go back to the trading hub and trade for a polar mask. It took a bit of time, but eventually I found a trade. I ended up trading 20 ore for the polar mask, and I now have a complete polar set. But before the video ends, let's look at everything I got in this video. Here is a quick overview of some of the loot I got. Keep in mind that I had around 60 ores in total before trading or using them. I also sold some other common items for some wen. But this is most of the loot I got. Anyway, that is it for the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. The next video will be on completing Mugen trains, so stay tuned for that. Bye.